And good morning, and you're very welcome to today's Signpost webinar, coming to you from a bright and frosty Galway. We do hope you're keeping safe and well wherever you're joining us from today. And today we're going to be talking to a representative from Dawn Meats and talking about their sustainability strategy, Plan 4.0. And I'm delighted to be joined by Jill Higgins, who is a Sustainability Director at Dawn Meats. Good morning, Jill. You're very welcome.
Good morning, Mark. How are you? Good morning, Andy, and hello, everyone.
Great. Thanks, Jill, and good morning, Andy. Andy Rowland, you're going to help us with questions later on. You're all well down in County Tip, Andy?
Yeah, nice sunny morning again, Mark.
Very good. And Jill, you're joining us from Dublin this morning, I believe?
That's right, yes. And Taryn, you're in Dublin, if anyone knows the geography. So it's a beautiful morning outside. So,
lovely.
Yeah, lovely.
Great. Jill, you're 3 years in this role with Dawn Meats. Maybe could you tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing there? And I know you're going to probably go into that in full detail in the presentation itself, but maybe just a little bit of background on yourself.
Sure, no bother. So I've been with Dawn Meats for about 3 years and 2 months at this stage. So I joined in September 2019. As head of sustainability, and I've had the privilege of being promoted to director in recent times, so I'm very happy. So sustainability, as everyone knows, very, very broad topic. So I'd cover all aspects from social, environmental to economic across the business and engage with our suppliers and also with our customers. So a huge big part of the role would be engaging with customers and working to deliver against our shared goals. So it's every facet of sustainability you can imagine, but my big focus would be climate and emissions and bringing those down. So yeah, before that then my background was I did the Origin Green Ambassador Masters. So that's the one that's organised by Board BIA. And I had the great privilege of working with McDonald's global sustainability team for about 10 months and M&S's Plan A team in London as well. So they were fantastic placements to be on as a student. But before that, I spent about 10 years working in corporate banking and finance in Ireland. And before that, then I did a maths degree in Trinity.
Okay, so you've come full circle back to sustainability. Well, that's a really interesting career path you've had so far, and so we look forward to hearing about the journey that you're on in Dawn this morning. So if I could ask you, Jill, to share your slides with us, and while you're doing that, just to remind everybody that today's session is being recorded and will be available on the Teagasc website, as well as the podcast version of the Signpost. So if you're driving in your car and don't have time to be sitting looking at a video, you can tune into the Signpost webinar on any of the podcast platforms. So Jill, we'll hand over to you for the presentation, and we'll take questions afterwards. If you have a question for Jill, please do use the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen, and we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers at the end of the session. So Jill, over to you.
Perfect. That's great, Mark. Can I check? You're just seeing my PowerPoint.
Yep, that's perfect. Yeah, we can see your screen perfectly there.
Thanks a million. That's great. Okay, so well, firstly, again, good morning, everyone. So today I'm going to just give you an overview of Dawn Meats' new sustainability strategy. It's called Plan 4.0, and we're going to be launching publicly very shortly. So before I jump into it, I'll give you a quick overview of our company. So we're known as Dawn Meats Group, and we have about 29 sites across the world. For today's presentation, I'll focus in on Dawn Meats Ireland, who are the first company, if you like, established in Waterford in 1980 as a family-owned business. So we have about 40,000 farmer suppliers across the UK and Ireland, from which we source and process about 1 million cattle and 3 million sheep every year. And we convert we then produce about 350,000 tonnes of meat products, which we export to around 50 markets around the world. And in fact, Dawn Meats Ireland export 84% of our products. So our customer base would be retailers, so the major retailers in the UK as well. So for example, the likes of Sainsbury's, Tesco, the Co-op, etc., just to name a few. We'd also supply big food service companies and restaurants such as McDonald's. Just to give you an idea, there are many other customers. So will give you a good indication of the scale of our business. We've about 7,000 employees, and our turnover is about 2 billion. So this is our sustainability executive and our sustainability team. So our executive is chaired by our CEO, and it's made up of 7 directors from across the business, including myself, 2 commercial directors, HR, operations, food safety and quality, and engineering, as well as our head of marketing. You can also see a quick snapshot of our sustainability team. So there are about 40 members of the sustainability team working across the business, and these will be subject matter experts in their various areas, from agriculture to procurement to ethical trade, etc., finance, just to name a few of them. So the team work together cross-functionally on various sustainability projects, and they implement them. On this, the role of the executive would be a strategy development, review, making sure that it's fit for purpose, and also then monitoring progress against all of our targets. So to take a look at a quick snapshot of Plan for Zero. So as a business, our purpose is to provide consistent quality meat products from sustainable sources to support our rural communities, human health, and nature's ecosystem. Our plan is governed by 3 values. It's about having the right measurement. So in other words, what gets measured gets managed is one of the mottos that we use, as many people do within the sector. And it's about using data and science when setting targets and making decisions. And that then leads directly into scaling up the right solutions that are going to deliver long-term sustainability. And then taking a balanced approach is really, really important. So you're bringing supply chain, employees, colleagues, peers, and customers with you on the journey. And then Plan 4.0. So 4 being 4 ambitions to get to net zero. So they focus on the environment, farming, food, and society. The environment being to protect and restore nature and biodiversity, support the development of a circular economy powered by renewable energy. Farming, while we've made great strides in Ireland in terms of sustainable production, we do have further to go, and it's all about continuous improvement. So we work to inspire more the adoption of more sustainable farming methods, for example, better animal health and welfare, all of which then will enhance meat quality. Our food ambition, again, focuses on producing delicious, nourishing food in support of human health and welfare. And human health and well-being, I should say. And then finally, our society ambition is all about diversity and inclusion, ethical trade, human rights, and supporting our communities, again, all through the transition to net zero. So taking a quick look at our headline targets. So as a business, we had our science-based targets, or climate targets, approved back in 2019, and we were one of the first, if not the first, European beef and lamb processor to do so. So we chose 2016 as our baseline year, and we found to measure our full supply chain emissions, and we found that 70% of our total emissions came from sourcing live cattle and sheep from the UK and from Ireland. And we found that 1% related to our operational emissions. So these are known as Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions. So these are emissions related to powering our sites. 1% related to packaging and upstream and downstream logistics combined. And then 24% related to investments that we have overseas that we don't have operational control over. And then that last 4%, which is very, very difficult to quantify, relates to what happens downstream in the supply chain. So, for example, what the consumer does with our product in the home. So, in other words, how it's cooked, how it's disposed of, etc., how the packaging is disposed of. So, when we set our targets, we chose 2030 as the target year. And we said that we will reduce operational emissions, so that's Scope 1 and 2 combined, by 59% by 2030. And that aligns with 1.5 degree pathway, or a net zero trajectory. And our supply chain target, or Scope 3 target, is an emissions intensity reduction of 28%. And that's emissions from farming divided by tons of finished product. So when what we're doing now is we're increasing the ambition of our climate targets. So we're going for net zero operational emissions across our sites by 2040, and our supply chain target, which I should have said aligns with 2 degrees, we will increase the ambition of this to align with 1.5 degrees of warming, and again that will put us on a net zero trajectory, which we will hope to get to as soon as possible. So again, supply chain emissions, they're outside of our direct control, and reaching net zero will require collaboration across sectors and industries. But our priority is these operational and farming emissions, and to help us deliver this plan, we're investing an initial €100 million in Plan for Zero. So let's take a closer look at what we're doing again to deliver this operational emissions target. So progress so far, by the end of 21, we'd actually reduced our emissions by 40%. So we're well on our way to achieving our science-based target by 2030. So on the left-hand side of the graph, you can see the percentage breakdown of the sources of our Scope 1 and 2 emissions. So about 54% related to sourcing electricity to power our sites. And since 2019, we've been doing that using renewable electricity. We do this by purchasing it from the grid. And we're also in the process of looking at on-site renewable generation as well. Renewable energy generation, I should say. The next part of our Scope 1 emissions related to F-gases from our refrigeration systems. So F-gases being very, very strong or potent greenhouse gas emissions. So we're in the process of upgrading our refrigeration systems to net zero refrigeration systems, for example, using ammonia gas within the system. And we'll have all of that done by 2030. We are also converting our own fleet of vehicles to electric vehicles. And the last remaining section would be emissions from thermal energy generation. So, for example, we would burn fuels on our sites to heat water. And we are reducing those emissions. In the short term, we're moving to lower emission fossil fuels, and we're upgrading our boiler equipment to make it more efficient. Then we're also electrifying the process. So we'll be using electricity to power the thermal energy generation systems. And again, that would be renewable electricity. And we're also introducing renewable sources of heat recovery, such as heat pumps across our sites. So beyond 2030, the majority of the remaining emissions will relate to thermal energy generation, and we have a plan in place to drive them down as close to zero as possible by around 2035. At which point in time, we'll have a certain portion of residual emissions. So these are unavoidable emissions that remain after all actions have been taken to bring emissions as close to zero as possible. And then what's preferred then to, if you like, offset those emissions would be verifiable high quality offsets. So at the moment, the offset market is somewhat unregulated, it's voluntary. So we're talking to players in this space and key partners to see how it's evolving. But we, based on discussions we've had so far, it looks like offsetting using these verifiable high quality offsets, these verifiable high quality certificates, if you like, or credits, will be possible from around 2040. So let's take a closer look at our environment ambition. So as well as reducing greenhouse gas emissions across our sites, the environment ambition focuses on water, energy, packaging, waste, and biodiversity. So look, regarding water and energy across our sites, our approach is to measure consumption, identify opportunities for optimization, set targets, and then closely monitor progress. All of our production sites are certified for environmental and energy management. So that's ISO 14001 and 50001. And real-time performance across our sites is observed through an energy management system, which is bespoke to our organisation. And we have metering in place on all of the main users of water, electricity, and fuel. So water obviously is critically important for food processing, where it's primarily used for sterilisation, washing, and general hygiene. And as part of our production process, water is accessed through wells on our sites, also via public water supply, and then by harvesting rainwater as well. So as a business, we continuously optimize the efficient use of water through ongoing investment in technology. And as we move forward, our production sites will continue to be evaluated against a variety of initiatives, for example, rainwater harvesting and grey water reuse or wastewater reuse. And suitable sustainability projects will be rolled out by 2030. As a business, we've continuously reduced water usage intensity year on year and will continue to do so. Looking at energy, moving to low and zero emission sources of energy is absolutely crucial to achieve a net zero economy. And as I've mentioned, 100% renewable electricity is used to power a range of activities at our facilities, That would include powering refrigeration systems, wastewater treatment, mechanical services, water pumping, processing equipment, and general services such as lighting, etc. In relation to waste, we're constantly looking at ways to reduce all forms of waste across the business. And we do this by adopting a lean approach. And we've been a zero waste to landfill business since around 2016. So what happens with our waste? Well, we recycle or recover all packaging, scrap metal, dry mixed recyclables, electrical components, construction waste, waste oil, again, just to name a few. And then general waste is recovered through incineration as refuse-derived fuel. As a business, we have a target to increase the volume of waste recycled, reused and recovered, excluding this RDF, up to 60% by 2030. Really critical to achieving our water, energy and waste targets is employee engagement. So we work with employees and we engage with them and educate them on how their actions impact water performance. And we've instilled a culture of accountability across our sites. So there's lots of awareness campaigns which are regularly arranged. And we'd also have involved like how we can, we talk to our employees about our targets and how their actions will help us achieve our targets on a site-by-site basis. And that's done via toolbox talks, pit meetings, and then direct reviews as well. And obviously we have an annual environmental week. So looking at packaging next. So packaging, very topical, extraordinarily important. Plastic itself, as I'd like to say, is a very valuable material. Obviously, there are a lot of challenges in how it's collected and disposed of around the world, but we can't lose sight of the fact that it's a very valuable material. And packaging is essential for safely transporting our products while maintaining quality and reducing food waste. So again, packaging is so important when it comes to keeping food waste to a minimum, food waste accounting for about 8% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So we as a business are working to increase the recyclability and the recycled content of our packaging while reducing and eliminating any unnecessary volumes. Just a moment. So so far we've developed a fully recyclable tray, so plastic tray for our retail meat products, which has been rolled out. And this is made from, I should say that the plastic tray over time, plastic has evolved to be made from many different types of polymers or material. So our plastic tray is made from a very simple or mono structure, as it's known, which makes it easier to recycle. So in other words, you remove complexities from the packaging, which makes it easier itself to recycle. And that's a key step in the development of a circular economy for plastic packaging. Flexible materials, however, such as shrink bags and films, are laminate structures, and they're made of multiple plastic types. And because of these multiple plastic types, it gives them these unique characteristics such as puncture resistance and then protective barrier properties and excellent sealing qualities. So these are a bigger challenge to simplify in terms of structure and make them easier to recycle, but we are exploring a lot of solutions through sustainable packaging projects with organizations such as, say, for example, Meat Technology Ireland. Making virgin plastic material requires the use of something called hydrocarbon technology. And this is the process which involves quite a high release of greenhouse gas emissions. So it's really important to use recycled materials wherever possible. So plastic bottles are the primary source of the recycled material which we use in our trays. And our rigid plastic trays can have a recycled content of up to 90%, which is something we're very proud of. However, material availability for this recycled content is going to increasingly become a challenge. And that's due to European legislation, which now requires a recycled content for bottle manufacturers and industrial consumers of at least a 30% stated minimum. So competition for this material is increasing rapidly. We also look at packaging supply chains to identify opportunities for plastic reduction. And it's quite complex in terms of engineering projects and innovative tray redesigns, which we engage our packaging suppliers on. And since 2019, we've actually achieved a reduction of about 14% in plastic in our retail supply chains. And then lastly, our paper packaging is primarily corrugated board, solid board and carton board. The majority of it is FSC certified, and we have a target to reach 100% of all of our cardboard packaging by 2025. Okay, so the last part of our environment ambition relates to biodiversity at our sites and in our communities. As due to the location of our sites, the scope for biodiversity projects varies, and we regularly engage with environmental scientists and specialists in ecology to help us assess potential for improvement. So to date, around our sites, we've installed beehives, planted trees and permitted areas to go wild. And this year we engaged an ecologist to undertake a new assessment, and we have new site biodiversity action plans, which we're currently reviewing, and initiatives will be adopted from late 2022 or early 2023. We also engage within the community, and we support organisations such as Tidy Towns and local schools on educational projects such as planting wildflower areas, building bug hotels, and also the importance of pollinators. Within the supply chain, we support the Hen Harrier project. So this is to help farmers enhance the value of the ecosystem services of their land. The project, the Hen Harrier project, does this by rewarding farmers for the quality of the habitats on their farm while co-investing to improve and manage these habitats. So if you'd like more information on the Hen Harrier project, there's a full website available, and it's a really, really great project. I'd urge you to look at it. So next then, let's have a look at what we're doing within the supply chain on our emissions. So again, our target is an emissions intensity target, being to reduce emissions from farming, so the livestock, sourcing the live cattle and sheep, and then also then to produce more finished products, so to derive more from our inputs. This will all help us. This will all help towards achieving our science-based target, which is a 28% reduction by 2030. And so far we've achieved a 15% reduction. So again, we're well on our way to achieving this target. Slide. So really, really important is to link supply chain data. So at the moment, organizations, so for example, processors like ourselves and our customers are calculating our greenhouse gas emissions and supply chain emissions using different sources of information and using, say, different conversion factors known as emissions factors. So a big challenge is to adopt a consistent approach to emissions accounting across the supply chain, so that the entire supply chain is working off the same baseline data, and that targets are aligned, and that any achievements in reducing emissions within the supply chain is all passed along and shared across the supply chain. So we have a project to link this data, establish a consistent approach to accounting, which will allow Dawn and our customers to demonstrate progress against our shared climate targets. So looking at the Dawn Ireland supply chain, we have obviously fantastic initiatives going on with Borbia, where they carbon footprint. I think 96% of all beef produced and 60% of all lamb produced in Ireland has a credible carbon footprint attached to it. And feedback reports are given to farmers on actions they can take to reduce emissions. And as you can see from the slide there, it's an extract from the Origin Green report that there's been a steady decline in the average carbon footprint of Irish beef over the years. It's a fantastic story to be able to tell on an international stage. So what we're doing, say with the Dawn Ireland data and with our farming emissions data, is we're building a product carbon footprinting model for our meat categories. So this will include the data emissions and the data from farms, as well as emissions from our sites, our packaging and other aspects of the supply chain. And we will be able to share these product category emissions factors or product category carbon footprints with our customers, because we're working with the Carbon Trust to verify the methodology, to allow us and our customers to report to a recognised standard. So these emissions factors will be shared along our supply chain, and we will be recalculating them every year as suppliers continue to take action to reduce emissions, and as Scope 3 accounting itself continues to evolve. So we're all capturing the benefits along the supply chain. So I won't dwell on it now, but Scope 3 accounting, as I said, it's still developing, it's still evolving. We've an awful long way to go with it still. And there's a couple of projects that we're actively trialing ourselves as a business, and accounting standards that we're actively trialing. One of them is the greenhouse gas protocol, land sector and removals guidance. So this new guidance will allow organizations to account for emissions from, say, things like emissions, say, stored in soil, trees, hedgerows, etc., in land use and land use change. So emissions and removals from land use and land use change, I should say. We're also looking at different ways of allocating emissions across different product categories. For example, do you use, how do you allocate emissions to dairy versus meat, as an example, if you've got animals coming from the dairy yard. And then also things like allocation, do you use mass allocation or economic allocation? So for example, if you use economic allocation, you're basically say the price of different cuts of meat, as an example, would the emissions assigned to different cuts of meat would be based on their economic value, rather than the mass value of the mass they've come from the carcass. Okay, so looking then at our farming ambition, it's known as Farm Green, and this is our strategy for engaging with suppliers to reduce emissions and promote the transition to more sustainable practices. So our plan focuses on 8 core aspects of sustainable livestock production, including climate, biodiversity, soil, water, genetics, nutrition, health and welfare, and meat quality. So again, soil being the foundation of it all. If you have healthy soil, it's very fertile, it improves the soil's ability to store carbon, and obviously then better grass quality. I won't go into all of them in great detail, but suffice to say, in summary, grassland management is absolutely fundamental. There's so many opportunities available via genetics with animals. So for example, if like a lot of research from Chagas has shown, as we know, that you can produce animals, say, coming from the dairy herd, which will also be very, very suitable for beef production, and that you can breed animals that will mature at an earlier age, again, massively reducing its lifetime emissions, and then also animals that can actually, reduce the methane production through enteric fermentation. So all of that's very, very possible through genetic engineering. Through genetics. So in Ireland, we have 2 demonstration farms, which are part of the Signpost programme. They're known as Newford and Ballyvaden. So Newford was established in 2015 in Athenry in County Galway to showcase best practice in sustainable suckler beef production. The farm operates on a full commercial basis, and the herd consists of 100 Angus and Hereford cross Frisian cows. And they differ from the typical suckler herd. They're bred for their docility, their fertility traits, and their first calving at 24 months. I'd like to share some of the progress which Newford has made against some of its objectives, one of which was to promote best in class technical efficiencies. So variable costs as a percentage of total output at Newford reduced from 74% in 2015 to 58% in 2021. And that was due to significant improvements in animal health and lower veterinary expenses. In the first half of 2022, age at slaughter was reduced to 17.7 months for heifers, had a carcass weight of 290 kilograms, and all of these were grass-fed or 100% grass-fed. Last year, a 358-day calving interval was achieved, and that was supported by the adoption of new technologies in heat detection, with 0.99 calves produced per cow, and then 98% of the cows were calved without veterinary assistance. A 10-week calving spread was achieved, again, due to the adoption of 100% AI, using straws carefully selected to achieve the right balance between calving ease and good carcass growth. And then lastly, the farm has a high stocking rate of 2.7 livestock units per hectare. And in 2021, an average of 280 days of grass was achieved, as compared to the 6-year average in Ireland of 233 days. So this resulted in a reduction in concentrated feed requirements, housing and straw usage. So moving forward, Newford will continue to promote an environmentally sustainable model for the adoption of suckler beef production. In 2022, we partnered with Teagasc and Shinna Estates to establish a dairy calf to beef demonstration farm in Ballyvaden in County Tipperary. And this is building on the learnings from multiple calf to beef projects undertaken between Teagasc and Don Meats since 2008. So the farm itself consists of 112 acres of grazing infrastructure, and the proposal is to establish a dairy calf to beef unit to take all the calves from recognised sires to a finished beef animal. So over a 7-year period, it'll produce a blueprint for profitable dairy beef production systems based on technologies and practices which will improve grassland quality and utilisation, reduce nutrient losses and emissions, enhance farm biodiversity and animal health and welfare. And in the background, the farm will also promote the use of semen for replacements in the dairy herd and for the dairy farm to produce BDI approved sires. DBI approved sires. So as we move forward, both Newford and Ballyvaden will work to further reduce the finishing age and maintain market specification weights within a range of 280 to 360 kilograms, exceeding the national average calving interval of 395 days to achieve an 8 to 10 week calving spread using the maximum amount of grass. So, and I should say the last thing on our farming ambition, a big aspect of it is knowledge sharing initiatives. So we engage with the wider supply base via case studies, webinars, our demonstration farms and various other innovation farming projects. So moving now to our third ambition, which is food. This ambition outlines our actions to reduce food waste and optimize product quality and shelf life. So as a business, over 80% of our finished product is pure meat, sourced from Ireland and the UK, where grassland accounts for the vast majority of agricultural land. And it's a very positive story which Ireland can tell. It's about, our livestock convert grass into a highly nutritious, naturally produced protein rich in essential vitamins and minerals. So we actively promote and raise awareness of the important role that red meat plays and the valuable contribution that red meat plays to human nutrition as part of a balanced diet throughout our lifetime. And we follow the highest standards of food safety, and we're working on a number of innovative storage technologies to ensure consistent quality meat, maximize product shelf life and reduce food waste. So, for example, we would work with our customers to address food waste in the home. So, for example, we would improve on-pack home storage instructions, such as simple things like changing freezing guidance from day at purchase to best to on the use by date, and increasing the frozen storage times from 1 month to 3 months. So a lot of consumer research which has been undertaken in the last years shows that making small changes like this actually has a huge impact on reducing food waste in the home. And as a business then, we continue to donate meals to frontline workers, people in need and community groups. We are always looking at ways to add value and minimize waste from the livestock that we process. So food waste within our own production as a percentage of finished product is consistently below 100%. So when it comes to resource optimization and lean manufacturing, we're all about creating circular business models which enhance carcass utilization and yield. So by adopting a lean continuous improvement approach, we are creating an efficient enterprise which sustains growth by achieving customer and employee satisfaction. So it's about optimizing cost, delivering profitability, aligning the livestock supply chain with production requirements, and minimizing environmental impact. So it's about producing consistent quality product and eliminating waste within the production process. So the goal of improved carcass utilization is a consistent focus. And we partnered with a company called Elemental, a UK based agri-food company. And we're installing a stock process plant, which will recover up to 15% more human edible products for every animal that we process. Using their new technology, it'll allow us to extract high quality proteins and fats, which would otherwise be lost from the human food chain. So these additional food extracts will help to produce fully traceable, sustainable, authentic food ingredients that can be used in a variety of products, for example, ready meals, gravy, and soup. And by creating these new products and installing this technology, it's expected to deliver about 20% of our annual Scope 1 emissions target between 2022 and 2030. So lastly, our society ambition outlines our actions to maintain an inclusive workplace for our people and develop and retain the talent we need to help us adjust and innovate as we support communities through the transition to net zero. So we work to build and maintain an inclusive workplace for our team of about 40 nationalities. And we have an award-winning diversity and inclusion plan in place, which governs our recruitment and talent development, managing the workplace environment, employee engagement, retention, and health and well-being. And we'll continue to develop and retain the talent that we need to help us mitigate risks and leverage opportunities associated with climate change. We work to protect human rights in our supply chains and operations, and we're guided, all of our policies and actions are guided by the Ethical Trade Initiative Base Code. As a company, we're members of SEDEX, and all of our sites undergo SMETA and or supplier workplace accountability audits. So, you know, people, it's so important. People are the cause and effect of the change needed to reach net zero. So as a company, we sponsor education and science, and we encourage innovation and sustainability. We also then facilitate, so for example, some of the organisations we would engage with will be the likes of Junior Achievement Ireland, and we would support SciFest. So a lot of, you know, we're very, very motivated and keen to support STEM projects. We also then support, as I've mentioned earlier, our farming community via knowledge sharing initiatives. We encourage all employees to get involved in volunteering and fundraising. And our goal is to have a positive impact on the communities where we operate, source from, and where our employees live. So we provide a lot of financial and resource assistance to non-profit organisations and encourage employees to get involved wherever possible. So I'm almost at the end. This is my second last slide. So I'll conclude by saying it's really important to monitor progress against our targets so that we know we're delivering Plan for Zero. So we invite third-party oversight and external verification of our business policy, practice and performance to provide extra confidence to our stakeholders. So for example, we disclose annually to CDP, the Climate Change and Forests questionnaires. So CDP is the leading global body for the disclosure of emissions and actions to reduce them. So we're proud to say that we're among the A-list companies disclosing to CDP. So that's one of 200 companies around the world out of about 13,000 to disclose. Then in line with best practice, we calculate our greenhouse gas emissions, known as our emissions inventory, but we also have it independently verified by the Carbon Trust. So it's like having your financial statements independently verified by your accountants and auditors. And then we've linked so we have sustainability linked loans. So the interest rate on our revolving credit facility is linked to achieving our science-based targets and improving our CDP score or maintaining our CDP score. We're also adopting the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure Guidelines. So at the moment, we're going through the process of undertaking a risks and opportunities assessment of the impact of climate change on our business, including the financial impact. And we're conducting a scenario analysis of what could happen to our business and supply chains if the world heats by 1.5 degrees and if the world heats by 4 degrees. We're gold members of Origin Green in Ireland. And we're an EcoVadis silver rated company. So EcoVadis, again, is an international sustainability rating agency. And the scoring methodology is based on standards aligned with the Global Reporting Initiative, the United Nations Global Compact, and ISO 26,000. So lastly, we're signatories to the EU Code of Conduct for Responsible Business and Marketing Practices. So In conclusion, very important again to say that the Irish food sector is the world leader in sustainability, and much work has already been done. However, it is vitally important that we continue to make improvements to maintain this leadership position. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Jill. Thank you for excellent presentation. There's really good work going on there, obviously, in Dawn to try and reduce the carbon footprint and the water footprint as well, because I know the pressure is on now, isn't it, to hit these targets, and it's quite I suppose it's poignant that we are on the last day of COP27 today. Things are wrapping up there after another round of discussions and trying to get agreement on countries in the western part of the world to try and fund this change that's happening. And I guess a lot of the narrative now is that we do need transformational change in our society in order to address this targets of reducing emissions in Ireland by 50% by 2030. And my question is around the focus on emissions intensity versus the overall emissions, because ultimately what we're measured in Ireland is total emissions. And I'm just wondering how the work that you're doing there will contribute to that total emission target that has been assigned, that 25% reduction that we have to hit by 2030.
So obviously, absolutely, it's about reducing absolute emissions when it comes to our national legal requirement. So as we work with our suppliers to implement, say, the measures outlined in the Teagasc MAC, that is literally what we're doing. And by implementing the measures in the Teagasc MAC, you're helping to bring down farm level emissions. So, and that's what it's all about. And then, like as I mentioned throughout the presentation or within the presentation, genetics, so important. And a lot of the work that Teagasc has done, huge gains are going to be made in terms of achieving that national target. When it comes to the intensity metric and the intensity target that we have as an organization, like I said, achieving that involves reducing those absolute emissions from farms. So when you look at the fraction, the top half of the fraction is about reducing the absolute emissions on farm. So that's factored into the equation. And there's a big difference as well in terms of how countries look at their targets and how organizations look at their targets. So as obviously Ireland as a nation has an absolute reduction target, and the emissions inventory is the country border. Whereas when we look at a business level, it's an LCA or a life cycle assessment approach where you look at emissions outside the country that you're sourcing from as well. So it's full supply chain emissions. So it's a slightly different way of it's a different way of looking at it, but it's a very different way of measuring it. And something that we're looking at as a business in the background as well is work that we're doing in Ireland as well as outside of Ireland, how the carbon footprinting and improvements on farms and the data that's captured in those calculators, how that can actually feed back into the national inventory, so that actions that are being taken on farms to reduce emissions are actually being reflected in the national inventory data as well. Right. But I can't say much more about that at this point.
No, thanks for that. Just a question in relation to, I noticed that the stocking rates mentioned there on the Newford farm were 2.7 livestock units per hectare, and I'm just wondering how compatible that is with the likes of the nitrates directive, which I understand is moving towards lower intensity on a stocking rate basis.
Oh, I have to say, no, you've got me there. I'd have to defer to our agricultural team and our experts in that area. So
okay, no, that's fine. Look, we have lots of questions coming in, and I'm conscious of time is ticking on here. But Andy, I'm going to hand over to you. But I just want to say a special welcome to our viewers this morning from Croatia and Denmark. So your talk has obviously sparked a lot of interest from across Europe as well. So Jill, so welcome to our European viewers. Andy, some excellent questions coming through there.
Jill, and a good few comments coming in praising your presentation. And you
Oh,
know,
good.
I appreciate as well. I mean, sometimes we say from farm to fork, and we, you know, we regret, or I often regret saying it, because there's such a broad breadth of sustainability issues within that, and you've just focused on, you know, your end of it within the factory gate, if you like, you know. So there's a lot of the questions now that are coming in. I'm going to try and bulk some of them together, but please
Sure.
feel free to you know, defer to somebody else, because some of them, there's a good few farmers listening in this morning or looking in. But there's a couple there around water quality, actually.
Okay.
And you know, are you doing anything specifically to engage with farmer suppliers to improve both water quality and biodiversity? Is there anything specifically there that you're involved with, or
Yes,
talk to farmers about?
absolutely. So just bear with me for one moment. I'm sorry, I've got somebody at the door. Sorry to
You're
be
all right.
rude. Can you just bear with me for one moment? And
Yeah,
I'll just,
one sec. It's okay.
I
It's
just,
okay.
no bother.
Yeah.
So yeah, Andy,
Mark,
it's
you,
good.
you might remind people of next week's presentation. It's
Yeah.
been interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have an interesting project called Ferty Manure, and the focus is going to be on anaerobic digestion. So we have a speaker from Wageningen in University who's going to be speaking to us about the work that they're doing.
Yeah, we've Oscar Schumann's, Mark, from Wageningen University. And it's interesting there, maybe in the last week, with a lot of talk about anaerobic digestion. He's going to look at a couple of pilot projects at farm level. And then we have from the French organization Ritmo Agri-Environment, Nicolas Tevenin. And he's actually looking again. I mean, their whole Ferty Manure project is based around nutrient management, but he's looking at slurry separation, and actually mobile slurry separation at farm level. So there should be interesting topics. There's a lot of talk. There's a very interesting conference on last week on anaerobic digestion, and I think part of the new climate plan will focus a good bit on aerobic digestion going forward.
Absolutely, yeah. No, there's huge potential there for sure. Now, welcome back, Jill.
Thank you. My apologies for that.
You're fine.
So yeah, sorry. The question was, are we engaging with
biodiversity and water quality?
Yeah, biodiversity and water. So yeah, sorry, just to touch back on, so the demonstration farms that we have in Ireland, absolutely. So with particularly with the new Ballyvaden farm that we've set up, a portion of this farm will, and a portion of Newford as well, will be incorporated into high diversity landscape. So the wildlife measures on intensive grassland farms obviously play a very important role in halting the decline of biodiversity. So the farm at Ballyvaden has a significant amount of natural and semi-natural habitats, and a biodiversity plan is going to be developed to maintain and manage those existing habitats, improve the quality of existing hedgerows, and then we'll also be installing a riparian buffer strip along the streams and ponds that are down there to avoid fertilizer slurry or herbicide application as well. So we'll also then be establishing new habitats where appropriate on the farm. So in other words, we'll be looking at the whole farm, cordoning off areas which will be very suited to, say, the promotion of biodiversity on those farms, and we'll be sharing that knowledge with the supply base, and that will be done via webinars, social media communications, and farm walks as well, farm open days.
Yeah, we have a few questions coming in here in relation to communicating that or signaling back to the farm level around, you know, sustainability, and are there is Dawn planning any ways of incentivizing farmers to change their behaviors or change the systems on their farms to improve the sustainability effectively?
Sure. So I can come back to the water one in a moment, so if you so wish. But so yeah, absolutely. So our agriculture and procurement team and sustainability team, including myself, have put together a full communication plan. in terms of knowledge sharing. So absolutely, what we're doing at the moment is, in the past with Newford, we've had farm open days, and we have a website, and we also have a regular newsletter that goes out to suppliers to inform them of the achievements that the farm has made and how the farm achieved those sustainability benefits. We'll be doing the same with Ballyvaden, and in fact we have a whole communication plan that we've been developing recently, and we'll be launching it very shortly under the Farm Green banner that I've mentioned. And again, it's going to be a combination of suitable communication methods depending on, to cater for a variety of audiences. And that, like I said, will be farm open days, it'll be case studies, webinars, emails, newsletters. And we have a new website that we're building called Plan for Zero to go with the launch of our sustainability strategy, and all of our communications will be housed there as well. And so that's really how we will engage with the wider supply base. Obviously, we work directly with, so within Ireland, we have about 22,000 farmer suppliers. So we engage directly with a portion of them as well on some innovation farming projects. Have I answered the question?
Yeah, and maybe I didn't ask the question because you've answered part of the question, but sure. Just in terms of price, there's some questions. I mean, will there be any price differential for farmers who engage more in sustainable farm practices?
So in terms of incentivization, a lot of the research and development we would fund that as a business ourselves and share the knowledge, really, really valuable knowledge from this critical research. When it comes to, if you like, a sustainability price premium, if that's what's being asked, as a business, we can only pass back to suppliers what the market will pay us as a business. Now, and for me, it's not about paying a premium price for sustainability, because you don't want niche products being carved out here. It's about the transformation of the whole supply chain. So we want to work together to move the whole sector and the whole supply chain so that we have improvements en masse, rather than paying, if you like, premium prices for sustainability.
Okay, maybe on that, sorry, Mark, on that particular topic, Yvonne, there's a few comments come in. I think you mentioned the Hen Harrier project, and there's probably acres, and going back, I can remember maybe you wanted back, there was a suggestion perhaps we should have reps beef, or acres beef, or Hen Harrier beef, and there's also one or two questions on organics or bull beef. So maybe you've answered it in your last response, but do you have any plans to sell beef specifically, like Hen Harrier beef from a particular part of the country, or do you think that organic, if there's a vast increase in the numbers of organic farmers now, will that lead to you changing your marketing for selling beef in the future? Or maybe perhaps you're dealing with organics already, possibly.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say it would lead us to changing our product offering. We'd certainly say yes. We have an organic range. It's on our website. So I mean, if the market demand is there, absolutely we'll work with farmers to get the product out to meet that demand, and do as much as we can to help establish and create the market for that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, because I expect you're hopefully there is going to be more of a push in that direction. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'd be interested, Jill, on your view on the whole carbon labeling or sustainability labeling. Where is that headed at the moment, or is that something Dawn is looking at? Because I know you talked about the supply chain, but for the consumer and communicating to the consumer about the standard of the food and or whichever way it is produced. Is that something that you're looking at?
So yes, we're looking at what eco labels, eco scores, carbon labeling. So a challenge so far around the world is a lack of primary data. So at the moment, a lot of the eco labels that are in circulation or that have been trialed, as an example, so eco labels will include carbon, water, various other sustainability credentials measures. And they're often calculated using global average figures or something known as secondary data. So they're not necessarily accurate. or a true reflection of what's happening. So my personal view is more and more primary data is needed and is critical, that will allow consumers, basically that will credibly and reliably inform consumer decision making. So that's one thing. However, that lack of primary data isn't stopping eco labels from arriving on our doorstep. So we are involved in various discussions at the moment on watching what's happening. So for example, there's a group in the UK called IDG, and they're producing a set of standards that should be followed by organizations. So it's coming out sometime this month. So they're proposing that organizations begin using global averages and generic data and progressively over the years move towards greater volumes of primary data. We don't know if it's going to be adopted en masse, but it's something that's being worked on at the moment. And so we're part of those discussions along with peers and customers and other supply chain parties. Then there are other groups, for example, the likes of Foundation Earth, who have trialed an eco label. And then other individual companies have trialed various types of eco scores as well. So look, we're watching it, we're watching the space. It is going to happen. But yeah, personally, there is, like I said already, that greater need for primary data to, in my opinion, reliably inform consumer decisions.
Just, there's one or two other quick fires here, Jill. No, you can click to touch with some of them, but there's one I say it probably make more sense to you than to me about the central distribution center system that you have. It says, have you engaged with your stakeholders on the carbon emissions for this system, i.e. animals, say, that are reared and slaughtered in Waterford? But some animals then, from I can gather from here, meat can go to distribution centres in Cork and Kildare and Monaghan, then to come back to Waterford. So your own internal, does that obviously forms part of your stakeholder group on reducing carbon emissions as well, or would that something like that would be looked at? Now, I'm afraid I'm at sea with the question, but hopefully it makes sense to you.
I'm a little at sea, but I'm guessing it's to do with the movements of animals, the logistics.
Yes, when they're being procured, yeah.
Yeah, so absolutely. So when we look at our own emissions accounting and our inventory, we account for logistics. So we'd say, yes, the animals have come from this part of, so we'd say, yeah, okay, we sourced X volume of animals from Ireland and, within these regions in Ireland, and then therefore the estimated distance between that sourcing region and our site is X amount, and that's how we would calculate emissions associated with
transport. But I think the questioner is possibly getting at, maybe do your animals go to a central distribution centre and then come back to the factory, rather than maybe going direct to a factory, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm not really, I don't really understand what the question is trying to achieve.
One other thing, you're talking about renewable generation of your own fuel. How do you play? You're currently purchasing renewable energy. Are you planning on creating your own renewable energy into the future on site, and what type of energy are you planning on creating, or is it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the energy we procure at the moment is via what's called a guarantee of origin, or a renewable energy certificate. So it's from our providers, our electricity providers. So we are at the moment looking at on-site renewable energy generation, for example, installing solar panels on our roofs or surrounding land, and also wind turbines.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, great. I think there's one other. You mentioned sustainably linked loans.
Yes.
Is that the loans you partake yourselves as the business, or I assume those loans aren't available to farmers? That's not the.
I would say, as a farmer, contact the likes of Rabobank.
No, that.
Yeah. No, so what I'd say is no. So the sustainability linked loans that
And one final one. Do you have sustainability advisors out at ground level speaking to farmers, and how many do you have?
Oh, how many? I don't know, but certainly our agricultural and procurement team would regularly hold talks with farmers and visit farms. They're engaging in dialogue on how farms they can reduce emissions, improve sustainability and farm efficiency, and things like market specification, all that sort of stuff. Things like walk the chain. All of these things are regularly hosted by our agri and procurement teams.
Yeah.
Okay, we're just out of time, I'm afraid. But just on that last piece there, I know that our our connected team are delivering training to some of your procurement people across the meat industry as well. So it's all about, you know, developing that greater understanding and awareness of the challenges and the solutions that are available as well. So it's great to see that happening.
Yeah.
Jill, thank you so much. Really
bother.
positive remarks coming through here on the Q&A around your presentation. So thanks for that, and really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Your presentation, we'll be uploading that onto the website along with a recording of the today's session as well. And Andy, thanks so much for helping with questions as well. We had a lot of interest today, and as you could say, I don't know what you heard, yeah, Jill, yes, we had a few international visitors today as well joining us. So next week, we'll be joined by Oscar Schumans and Nicholas Teven to talk to us about the Ferti Manure project, which is looking at European NMP, or nutrient management planning strategies, with an emphasis on anaerobic digestion as well. So do join us for that. And the following week, we have a very special guest who's going to be joining us to speak about Ireland's climate action plan. And we'll tell you more about that in the coming days. But until next week, thank you again, Jill and Andy. And I want to say special thanks to Yvonne Maher, who's in the background today, and also to Pat Murphy with his assistance with this series. So we'll see you all next week. Enjoy the weekend, and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.